Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you also just for listening, for taking the time for yourself today. The skies are a little wild this week. And so I wanted to come and give you some pep talk, number one, and also give you some insight about what is going on. I'm sure you're feeling it. I'm feeling it for sure. As you might have noticed, we've taken a couple of weeks off. And thanks for bearing with me. I have two talks that I'm giving for the conference with the Astrological Association in the UK. And so I'm headed to London next week and I'll be there. And then I also have my big workshop, my retreat at the Omega Institute from September 2nd through 6th. So I had a lot of prep to do in addition to regular business. And it all just got to be a little too much. And Mercury's also retrograde. So I want to thank you all just for moving through these times with me. And I really hope I get to see you at the Omega Institute or at the Astrological Association's big conference. I am giving two talks that I am thrilled about. The first one is a regular lecture. It's a talk about climate, AI, the future of technology, where we're headed as we move into 2025, 2026, and beyond. And we have some of those outer planet transitions from earth and water signs into air and fire. So I'm going to talk about flying cars, you all. And to talk about some of the other trends that we'll see with space discoveries and AI technology and where climate is headed. The second talk I'm giving is about intergalactic astrology. Now, this is something I've been geeking out about. I have to teach a class on black holes and deep space objects and the way that we work with different galaxies and the different types of galaxies and lean into that symbolism in our astrological practices. Now, this is future stuff. So some of you I might have lost by this point. Don't worry, come back, come back, come back. I have some interesting things to say. So that is going to be a plenary session on September 1st. If you are in the UK, come to join me. And then the Omega Institute is my big workshop in early September, and it's a lot of self-reflection. We will be coming out of the Mercury retrograde cycle. And yeah, so it's okay, what's next? What are we going to create with our lives moving forward? And how do we get the resistance out of the way? So that is all happening. It's been busy, you all. The fall is always a time when we're moving forward in the calendar year, moving into a new season. And it's a time of transition. But this fall in particular is pretty remarkable because the US election is happening and the eclipses are coming in September and October. So it's a good time to get away. It's a good time to take a break right now. And that leads me to our talk about this week's astrology and in particular that upcoming full moon. I've had people ask me questions about this week's astrology as if, wow, we're really afraid of what's coming down the pike. But I'm here to tell you, there's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing to be afraid of. It's a full moon. Things are weird. If I have one thing to say about our field, it is this. The purpose of astrology is not to inspire fear. That is a way that some astrologers talk about astrology. It reminds me of when astrology was being used in the Middle Ages and the early modern period by people in positions of power and authority to try to get money in some ways. And so anytime you're listening to something with astrology and you start to feel afraid of a civil war or of things that are really beyond our control, stop and ask yourself, how much of this do I believe? How much of this is really relevant to my life? Do I feel this at my core? Or am I just enjoying the dopamine rush of worrying and getting all wrapped up in a story that is still being created by the collective thoughts and dreams and ideas that we are all a part of? So Yes, we can look at astrological transits. We can look at things coming down the road and we can say, "Oh, this is the way that that we've experienced it in the past. Here are certain themes that are present and certain keywords to identify with different signs, different every astrological symbol has m- multi-layered meanings. And we can read so much into those meanings. Allow astrology to pique your curiosity, to inspire your imagination. And that's what I'm hoping to do with today's episode. So let's get into it. Leading up to the full moon on August 19th, we have two transits that are important to pay attention to, but also what these transits signify for us in terms of some of the larger unfolding stories that are happening with global events and politics, our geopolitical stories. And so, what we have is we have Mars meeting Jupiter on Wednesday, August 14th. And this transit is what I like to think of as the fireworks transit, because Jupiter expands and blows up and magnifies anything that it comes in contact with. And Mars is the way that we protect our boundaries. It's also the planet that relates to really advocating for what we most hold dear. It does relate to things like fire, bombs, weapons, military operations, sharp objects. And so we have the potential here for some kind of an explosion, some kind of an eruption. Now, if we frame that in a way that is exciting, because Jupiter loves to advance a storyline and it loves to be a bestower of generosity, of good things. And so when we have these two planets coming together, Mars has the potential to destroy, and it also has the potential to motivate and inspire and, yes, go, take action. And so here we have a real shock of motivation, something that is lighting a fire underneath us and asking us to go do something, to mobilize, to take action. And what are we mobilizing for? We're mobilizing for the greater good. We're mobilizing for something that is indicative of the world that we desire because Jupiter's involved. We also have the moon in Sagittarius in an opposition to this conjunction, and that's happening within a degree during when that conjunction perfects, which is around 11 a.m. East Coast time. So the moon represents the people. It represents our emotions. So here we have a swell of encouragement, of excitement, of enthusiasm, motivating our hearts to get more involved, motivating compassion, generosity, because the moon's in Sagittarius. And then there's the potential that something could ignite, like a movement of some kind. And Saturn can represent the imposed limitations that we have within ourselves. It can also represent the limitations that we're facing from external circumstances. So the way I think of this transit is it's like you have a whole group of people saying, let's have a party. This will be so much fun. Let's go. And then you have another group of people saying, absolutely not. There is no way we can throw a party. We don't have any money for food. We can't get a venue. So what we have is a buildup of excitement, enthusiasm with a big brick wall. So let's break down the different elements of the astrology. Let's start with that Jupiter-Mars conjunction. Now, this conjunction happens between 16 and 17 degrees of Gemini. And the Sabian symbol for that is the head of a robust youth changes into that of a mature thinker. And this symbolism relates to the transformation of our physical energy, our youthful vitality into the power to build concepts and intellectual formulations through which knowledge can be transferred. So it's creating structure for a lot of the just innate passion and motivation and angst that we have. Saturn doesn't say you don't get to have what you want. Saturn says Okay, I hear what you want, but we need to come up with a practical plan. This is all happening under the Mercury retrograde phenomenon. And the Mercury retrograde phenomenon is one that says you are already going in deep and the past, facing the past of this life, looking at your childhood, looking at all of the different motivating factors that went into the formation and structure of your ego. You're going deep and you're facing some of those big life challenges and some of the things that you have really spent a lot of your life wrestling to overcome. And so here we are during Mercury retrograde when we're already feeling a little full of angst because we are looking at regrets and we are really looking at where do we want to be? How do we want to focus our energy in a way that feels the most fulfilling, rewarding, purposeful, directional? And so this Mars Jupiter transit lights that fire underneath us to get to where we deeply desire to go. And that's a place that has a lot of hurdles on the way to it, on the path, that we're not going to go way out on a limb and alienate ourselves. So this Mars Jupiter transit happens, and it is a time when we're reminded of our youthful vitality. We're reminded of the angst that we had when we felt the most ourselves or when we currently feel the most ourselves. And it's a time when we want to bulldoze any barriers to authenticity. We want to bulldoze out of the way. This is a time of just mental transformation. It's a time of like mind blowing discoveries and realizations. You might see someone, hear someone that you trusted, that you thought was your mentor or ally, and you might hear something reflected from them, or you might discover something about them that blows your mind and opens you to new possibilities, that allows you to see deep into truth. Full moons in general tend to allow us to open the door to truth, and they let us see things that we couldn't see before, things that were in the dark before. Physically, this is what's happening, but metaphorically too. Think about where 16 degrees to 17 degrees of Gemini is in your chart. That is the area of your life where you're going to feel this motivation, this inner drive, this no holds bar, no nonsense, get out there and activate your passion. That's where you're going to feel it. So if it's in your 10th house, that could be the start of a new professional relationship. That could be the start of a new idea that sends your career in a different direction or that allows you to get motivated to start a new project. If it's in your 4th house, you might have some conversations with family members. You might start a renovation project and use that Mars energy to tear down some walls, metaphorically or literally. If this is in your 7th house, then there could be some kind of deep conversation in your relationship or partnership that allows you to have a new inspiration for something that you're creating together. Or it could be like a legal issue that comes up that feels all of a sudden and it gets you fired up to pursue justice. If it's in your 5th house, this could be either something that's happening with one of your children, a new start, some kind of news about their future. It could be a new creative project that you're undertaking. It could be an opportunity to get up on stage or to do some gambling in the 5th house. If this is in the 3rd house, this could be a new idea for something that you could teach or something that you could learn. This could be the meeting of new people in your community. This could be like a fire that sparks with one of your siblings. It's not all difficult, is known as one of the malefics, but I think that's because Mars can be misunderstood. Mars is protective. Mars doesn't want the people we love, the things we have, it doesn't want anything that is valuable to us to be harmed. And so that's when Mars gets active and activated. Mars is really like the rocket fuel that takes us, that flies us to our dreams and our goals, that allows us to reach for those stars. And so that's where we have that energy culminating, and whatever house it's in, that's where you're going to feel it. Sometimes Mars can be related to fights, conflicts, or erratic events, or fires, sometimes literally. But each time one of those conflicts emerges for us, we have to learn new things about boundaries. And so it's an invitation to look at our boundaries and ask, are we really protecting our interests in the best ways possible? Or are we really caring for the interests of others or harming the interests of others? Mars doesn't like that either. Mars doesn't like domination. Mars likes everybody get along. Mars in Gemini is a talker. It's a fighter with words. And so we're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff happening with different political rallies as Mars moves through Gemini, and especially this week. So let's move to the next transit of our conversation today, Mars square Saturn. So right after Mars meets up with Jupiter, and this is on August 14th, then it challenges Saturn in a square aspect. Squares are internal challenges. They're like the frustrations that we are moving through as a point of refining whatever it is that we're working on. It's like that stage in a creative project or in a writing project where you are blocked. You start doubting everything. You're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then you push through it and you're like, oh my gosh, look what I just did. It's amazing. Or it's not amazing and I have to redo it all together, but I made it through. So Mars square Saturn is interesting because Saturn is also in that square challenging aspect relationship with Jupiter. And so here we have Saturn, like I said before, as like the party mom, as the one who's saying, slow down, hang on, we got to think about things. And we also have Mercury retrograde at 29 degrees of Leo. This is important because Mercury retrograde is going to be passing over the composite chart of Trump and Vance and each one of their natal charts, their ascendants. And so Mercury retrograde is a rethinking of their political strategy. I think there could be something here that comes into the light, that comes up and surfaces. One of the ways this transit could manifest is in terms of our personal lives, really feeling frustrated if we are feeling misunderstood, or if because communication delays and communication setbacks and issues and misalignments can happen during Mercury retrograde, we want to be really careful with how we are communicating. So ask lots of questions. If something doesn't seem clear, don't assume, don't take anything for granted. And as always, back up your phones and your computers. So all of these transits are present during that August 19th lunation. And we also have the sun meeting up with Mercury right on the 18th. And so the sun, usually when Mercury retrograde goes back to the sun, it's on the home stretch of its retrograde journey. Even though it doesn't station direct until the 28th, we consider this the kind of the midway point where things get a little bit easier until that station degree when everything comes to a standstill. So we've already dealt with some of the big concerns with Mercury retrograde, and this transit on the 18th leading up to that full moon on the 19th places Mercury retrograde in the lunation chart. And this full moon, rather, this is a wild lunation. We have lots of activity taking place. And the first one, we've got that Jupiter-Mars conjunction. Even though it's separating, it's still there. We've got Venus opposite Saturn and in a square aspect with Mars and Jupiter. And so Venus is our relationships. It's our ability to connect with other people, but it's also our ability to have fun, to experience pleasure and beauty and joy. And this Venus is challenged. One, because she's in the sign of her fall. Two, because she's in that T-square with Saturn and Jupiter and Mars. She's just not getting any breaks. And so this is one of those transits, or one aspect of this lunation chart, that shows that we really need to nurture our relationships, because our big impulse is going to be to prioritize ourselves, is to want to get away and have space. So we could have some relationship difficulties. In closest relationships, we really might need to get away, to have space. And so the presence of Venus here shows a couple of different things. One, we need to be insistent on enjoying ourselves and doing something for fun, not succumbing to the obligations or the rules that we feel are imposed on us. Two, we want to walk a really fine line between taking our personal space and caring for our own individuated needs and not alienating others. So if there are social plans, determine if you don't want to go and you want to spend time alone, or you just need a break from everything this weekend. It's a lot. But see how much you can negotiate the ways in which your social activities, your relational activities can actually be a form of self-care. And that's especially true with the moon, the full moon. So the moon's in Aquarius, the sun's in Leo. That axis line features themes of being radically ourselves, bringing all of the gifts and the resources that we have to contribute to a group or to a community. So it's one and many. It's one within a community. It's self and others. And so that is the sort of the inner tension that we're facing during this lunation. We also have Pluto right there at 0 degrees Aquarius, getting ready for its trip back into Capricorn. And we have Pluto in an interesting aspect relationship with Uranus. Uranus is in an aspect relationship with the Sun and Mercury and Vesta. And so we've got this really unsettling Uranian influence, which is like anything could happen. And we've got Mars and Jupiter, and we've got Saturn. Every planetary player is coming to this party, and everybody's got their own agenda. And you might feel like that too. You might feel like everyone in your life has their own thing. They're doing their own thing. You're trying to figure out how to work together, how to bring people together. And you're trying to do your own thing too. So we have lots of mixed agendas, lots of hidden agendas coming into the light. And what it feels like to me is I am a few courses into the UCLA screenwriting certificate program. And this reminds me of that moment in a screenplay or in a film when all of the plot points and storylines converge right before the climax. The all is lost period where you're like, how are we going to get out of this situation? And all of these storylines are converging. So it's like the moment in the movie where you realize that your new romantic partner is the son of someone that taught you in grade school. So it's like that moment when all the storylines come together and you see how they connect. This is a moment of revelation. This is a moment of, wow, I can see things so clearly. I don't have a solution. I don't have an answer. And there are maybe even more challenges. This is like an all is lost moment. But after the all is lost moment, then the solutions just appear. Then situations work out. And that's what we have as the sun makes its way into Virgo on the 22nd and toward the end of the month. And then definitely after Mercury goes direct on August 28th, we have some clarity. And then it's, oh, I'm so glad that I got to see all the stuff that life showed me during that full moon. There are some outer planet storylines that are hovering over everything. They're using that screenplay analogy. The narrator in a film where it's little did they know that what would seem like the biggest tragedy was actually the greatest blessing. And those are the outer planets right at that in between 27 degrees and 0 degrees, like that. Those are sweet, those are sensitive spots. And so we have Uranus and Pluto and Neptune, our outer planets, our trans-Neptunian planets. Then we have the outer planets, and using that screenplay analogy, the outer planets are like their narrator in a film, where it's like, little did they know that what they considered their greatest tragedy would become their greatest blessing. It's like that loud, ominous voice, that all-knowing voice of wisdom, that sort of like over. One thing, too, we have these outer planets in the last degrees of their respective signs, and in the first degree for Pluto of Aquarius. We have Uranus at 27 Taurus, we have Neptune at 29 Pisces, and we have Pluto just moving back and forth over the last degrees of Capricorn and the first degrees of Aquarius. So I think of these outer planets as being like the narrator in a story, in a movie, where they're the ones who are telling the story, and the main characters, don't really have a sense of that bigger storyline. They can't even hear the narrator. They're just living their lives. That's what those outer planets are doing right now. And so everything that we have happening with lunation cycles, with different transits, is all happening under that larger unfolding storyline of these outer planets changing signs. A whole new transformed state of consciousness is emerging for us. And that means that what we think is the way to go, is right, is true right now, is going to fluctuate over the next couple of years. And where we are moving is toward Pluto and Aquarius and all that Aquarius symbolizes. And that really is the new paradigm. And Aquarius is much more focused on community and on togetherness and on democratic ideals. It's more focused on the community. It's also one of the more humanitarian signs that considers the ways in which we are all connected. So Pluto in Aquarius is that narrator for us right now. Pluto going backwards, Neptune going backwards, Uranus is going forward, and they're all touching one another in different aspect relationships. And they're all in aspect relationships with the Sun and the Moon and Vesta and Mercury. So we have the Sun and the Moon can instigate action when they are activating by aspect relationship, a larger transit or an outer planet transit. And so that is one thing that we pack into this lunation chart, is the overarching narrative that we can't quite hear, but we feel, we resonate with, and the drumbeat of our own current events carrying us forward. This lunation preps us, it like sets the stage for everything that's coming in September and October. We have the eclipse on September 17th and another one on October 2nd. Eclipses are the catalysts of change. And so this lunation cracks the door open for us to be able to see what we need to change or what we need to clear. And Mercury retrograde is also one of those guiding lights for us. That's giving us the opportunity to purge. And as it moves back through Leo, it's purging anything that is keeping us from feeling creative, alive and joyful, and free. And because it's moving backwards into Leo, it's helping us to clear anything that's keeping us from feeling alive, joyful, free, optimistic, confident, creative. So on that note, I wanted to offer a full moon practice for you. And this is a way for you to access the full spectrum of astrological symbolism and energy that's available for you, for motivation, Mars, for dreaming and spiritual expansion and discovery, Jupiter, for careful determination and dedication from Saturn, for ritual and grounding through Vesta, for curiosity and inquiry through Mercury, and pleasure and enjoyment through Venus. And the moon. Okay, sun and moon too. Sun and moon being the sun, being the spirit, being the aspect, the conscious will, the I am essence, that seat of desire, and the moon being the innermost, soft, sensitive part of ourselves. So take a few deep breaths and just allow everything to slow. Allow your thoughts to slow. Settle into this time and this space, really feeling the awareness of your breath in your chest and in your stomach. And if you're multitasking or doing other things, keep your eyes open. Don't meditate and drive. But just tune into your belly breath, that diaphragm, and feeling your breath. You're feeling your stomach, your belly expand and grow with each inhale, and feeling your belly contract with each exhale. The solar plexus is the area of our body that is ruled by the sun. It's the energy center that's ruled by the sun. The heart is the physical part of the body ruled by the sun. And so allow your solar plexus to fill with your energy, your power, your light. And just visualize that there is a great big bright white light right there at your solar plexus. And feel that light move throughout your entire being, moving into your aura and beyond, lighting you up. And if you feel any places that are in your body or in your awareness or in your energy body that feel depleted or tired or painful, send some of that light, that bright light, into those spaces and fill those spaces with your energy, your power, your light. Put a little smile on your face as you do that. Let your light shine. Taking a few deep breaths with your awareness centered at your belly, at your solar plexus. Just allow breath to come up from your belly through your throat. And make a sigh, make an om. Whatever feels most comfortable for your throat and your breath, just allow that voice to reverberate audibly. Great. And now, with the passageway between your solar plexus and your throat opened, state an intention that you'd like to offer for this full moon. State an intention. If you have a hard time thinking of an intention, go into your heart, tune into your heart, ask your heart and your solar plexus, what do I desire? What do I desire? There's no wrong answer. See what arises, see what comes up. As you do that exercise, really feel it in your heart. Attune to your desire. Let it move you. Let it fill your heart. And when you start getting your mind involved and you start questioning, is that really what it is? Or should it be something else? Stop. Go back into the heart. Attune to the heart. And now write that intention. Or if you're driving or you're taking a walk, don't write it just yet, but keep note of it. State the intention. Write the intention. Place it in a setting where it will be visible. I love putting intentions out under crystals, under rocks during the full moon. I love making moon water and writing my intention on a bottle. I love doing candle magic and putting my intentions on candles. The full moon offers lots of possibilities for us. And it's great if one of those intentions focuses on something that makes the most of that Mars energy. So that is your cosmic call to action. It's to actually hold that intention, write that intention, do something creative with that intention, and share it with me. I'd love to post your creations either on the YouTube channel or on my Instagram. I'm having so much fun with it, doing lots of election coverage. So I will be back with another episode. I promise I won't leave you all hanging like I have for these last couple of weeks. Again, thank you so much for being patient. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any topics you'd like to talk about, if you have anything that you'd like to hear or share, please feel free to reach out. My email or my website, you can contact me through my website, rachellangastrologer.com. You can go to the rachellangeshow.com where you can join our membership. Yeah, thank you. It's been great to be with you. And if I get to see you in September at the Omega Institute, I will be overjoyed. We will have so much fun. There might actually even be music. I wrote a song for you all. Anyone who gets to, and it's very playful and it's very fun, and we're going to have a sing along. Don't worry, nobody has to be good at singing. It's just one of those things that gets into your subconscious mind and then it works its magic. Yeah, so that is hopefully an incentive for some of you, and hopefully not a deterrent for others of you. Anyway, I love you, and I am so grateful that we have had this time together.